All right, welcome back to another episode of Sean and Ed's Do Baseball.
I'm Sean.
And I'm Ed's.
And we are doing baseball history.
That's right, we're a bi-weekly baseball history podcast where the story catcher doesn't know what the story pitcher is out on the mound throwing them.
That's right. It's the cross-up league.
The old cross-up league.
The old cross-up league. We have no idea. Well, Edsy has no idea what story's coming his way, and I do, and I'm excited to tell you this one, Edsy. I'm doing a little back-to-back. If you haven't listened, definitely check out our 1988 Hat Jays episode on a team potentially worse than the 2025 Rockies, and they were. So check that one out. Eds, where can people find us on the internets?
People can find us somewhere along social media or the internet World Wide Web at Doing Baseball or at Doing.Baseball. If you want to interact with us or give us a comment, give us a rating, a review, or even just generally say hi, you can find us at one of those two handles, and it should lead you in the right direction.
Heck yeah. Find us on there. Tell us what you like. Tell us the story idea. We have lots, but we always love crazy baseball history. I should also thank Two Loons, our sponsor for this episode, and I'm going to crack one right now because it's been a long work day. But Two Loons Brewing, you can check them out at twoloonsbrewing.com, at Two Loons Brewing on the internets as well. Find them at your local LCBO, your local beer store. Find them at a beer festival this summer. Grab a Two Loons, and as always,
please be of legal drinking age, and of course, enjoy responsibly.
That's right. Thank you, Two Loons. Thanks for listening. Give us a review, give us a rating, all of that stuff. Edsy, are you ready to catch this one?
I'm ready to strap on the tools of ignorance and receive this story. I'm ready to frame this one up, Sean boy.
Oh, damn, I hope you can frame this one. It's a classic episode, and actually I love the tools of ignorance. I started this one. Have you ever started one and you think you have an angle, and then you realize by like reading about a person for a week or two that you're like, the first thing I wrote is completely off base, but that was me.
That happens in probably 50% of the episodes that I research, so yes, I'm quite experienced in that feeling.
All right, well, let's just get to it. This week's episode is about Dennis Lawrence McGann. He's born in July 15th, 1871 in Shelbyville, Kentucky.
Shelbyville, where people marry their cousins.
That is wonderful, Eds, because I wrote, now assuming Eds has made a Simpsons joke or reference, you'll be pleased to know that right next to Shelbyville, 7 miles away, in fact, is Simpsonville.
Oh, wow.
There's some geography for you.
I was going to comment before you made the Simpsons, the Shelbyville reference there, that July 15th is my dad's birthday.
Maybe your dad is 155 years old and played first base.
I mean, I don't think so. He played third base, so that's out.
All right, he's out. He's out. So I was at first extremely skeptical about this man's name because although both Wikipedia and Sabre had him as Dennis Lawrence McGann, he is known in the baseball history books as Dan McGann.
Dan McGann.
Yeah.
All right.
So, but his real name's Dennis, so at first...
That's pretty close.
It's close, but that's Dan. You don't call your friend Dennis Dan.
Could it be Dennis?
No, it's Dan. It's
right,
just
okay.
D-A-N.
All right.
It's everywhere about this guy. There's no Denny. There's no Dennis. There's no Denny boy. So I was very suspicious. My suspicion grew even larger when I read a very small article in the New York Times from 1910. I quote, Daniel McGann, first baseman of the Milwaukee American Association team, left for Lexington, Kentucky today to attend the funeral of his brother, Dennis L. McGann, who committed suicide in Midway, Kentucky today.
Okay. That's a very confusing sentence because that would imply that there's two Dan McGanns?
Two Dennises or two Dans? But he's Dennis, but his brother Dennis killed himself.
Continue.
So, luckily, there's this fine website called Find a Grave. So, I think the New York Times was just confused for this and should have said Dan McGann went to his brother Dan McGann's funeral because Dan takes his name for his baseball career from his older brother, who I couldn't find. And I realized because of Find a Grave, right at the end of my research, that his older brother was Daniel Joseph McGann, who went by Joe or DJ.
Okay.
So anything about the family, they were like, yeah, Joe and his other brother and Dennis. And I'm like, okay, so who's the Dan that he takes his name from? But because of Find a Grave, we know. I'm getting way too hung up on this name.
Well, you're doing the Lord's work in clearing this up for all of us. So thank you.
Yeah. So yeah. Also, if you heard, his brother kills himself, and this is not going to be the only mention of suicide in this story. So just a heads up, if anybody's not in that space right now. We're going to get to it pretty quickly here. But the book, The Irish in Baseball, An Early History by David L. Fletz, I apologize, David, sheds a little more light on the confusion, but still leaves the water a little murky. But I trust the Find a Grave find that I found. And I quote from the book, Dan McGann was an interesting and mysterious player. Born in Kentucky in 1871, his given name was Dennis, but he used his older brother's name during his baseball career.
We've all done that. We've all had like an older brother. I mean, I don't have an older brother, but we all have an older brother or an older cousin that we think is really cool, and we're like, I'm gonna go by that name.
I'm gonna take that name.
Yeah.
Maybe our names aren't even Sean and Ed's. It's just because my older brother was named Sean, and I was like, that's cool as fuck.
Well, I clearly just stated that I don't have an older sibling. So, but anyway, carry on.
It's confusing. And it didn't help. I couldn't find a ton on his childhood, but he did. I think he had 6 siblings, maybe 7, with him being on the younger side. I couldn't exactly place him in the family. He had a brother named Tim Joe, who I later found out was the actual Dan. And obviously, I thought there might be a Daniel in there. No. On top of that, he had multiple sisters, one of which was named Mary and another named Ella. And his father, Joseph, was a stonemason who ran a store attached to the family dwelling. Now, sadly, the family would be marred by mental illness. His mother died. I wasn't exactly able to pinpoint it, didn't have enough time, didn't want to focus on it too much, but she dies when he's around 17. She might have killed herself. She might have been another reason. I don't want to, disgrace the woman's memory. But he's a teenager, and his mother kills herself. And in 1889, the Courier Journal ran a story with the subheadline, Mr. Joseph McGann and 5 of his children almost killed by an insane daughter in Shelbyville.
Oh my God! It's not really anything to laugh at. I'm more laughing at the absurdity of that amount of tragedy. My God!
So yeah, his sister Mary, when the mom dies, she really doesn't take it well. She's described as one of the brightest in the community, but when the mom dies, she attempts suicide herself. And they don't know how to deal with that. She doesn't succeed, and they don't know how to deal with that because it's 1889. So they're like, we'll just lock her in the house.
Oh, okay. Well, that certainly shouldn't help.
Yeah. So she is confined to the family home, but sneaks out one day. And she goes to the local shop, and she buys rat poison.
I assume to murder her captors.
Yes, that's basically where it's at. She clearly needs help and is being held against her will at home. So as she goes and she's just like, I'm going to buy rat poison. She puts it in the coffee, the sugar, and the lard. And the next day, the whole family drinks the coffee and the sugar. I think they figured out the lard thing before they did it, and they become unwell. Doctors were able to rescue, as this headline mentioned, 5 of the children. But sadly, Mary, the one who did this, dies as a result. Like, she kills herself trying to off everybody at the same time.
Okay. So spoiler alert: we've got a White Lotus season 3 situation here.
This is, played out over like 30 years. So this is the introduction that I got. I believe that happened to him when he was 17. And he's obviously, he loses his mother. His sister is clearly needed help and tries to kill everybody. And she dies. And he starts playing baseball somewhere around this time at 17, 18 in Shelbyville. In the Bluegrass League in 1891, that's the first time he kind of shows up. He moved to the Harrodsville Club before playing for Lexington and Marysville in the Kentucky League. So that's his like early 20s. At age 23, McGann spent the 1895 season with the B-level Norfolk Portsmouth Clams, also known as the Crows. Don't know why.
That's confusing.
The Clams or the Crows play in the Virginia League, and he's playing every position except pitcher, catcher, and first base. And Baseball Reference only has 16 games here for him, although he played probably more than that. And he just in his 16 games, they got a 222 average in 58 at bats. Nothing special. No big stats there to really look at. The following year, he returned to the Virginia League, this time with an amazingly named Lynchburg Hill Climbers. And he was the Hill Climbers' second baseman and put together a season that would propel him into the major leagues.
Okay.
87 games, McGann hits .359 and slugs over 600 with 15 home runs, 26 doubles, and 9 triples for a total of 50 extra base hits in just 171 at bats. So that's like an extra base hit every third at bat. Like, that's how good he was.
I was gonna say that's pretty damn good. He is having success.
He's having success despite the early trouble. Family-wise, he's doing well. And on top of it, he's fast. He's really fast. He's steals 16 bases that year in a short season, remember? And he also, according to Don Jensen's Saber bio, he had 30 stolen bases. So a little bit of difference. We're talking 1800s here. So some of the stats can be a little disputed. Regardless of his discrepancy in the stolen base tally, it was a hell of a season for McGann, and he caught the eye of the Boston Beaneaters, who purchased McGann's contract on August 1st, 1896. Okay. So he's going to the big leagues.
25 years old.
And he's a bean eater now. He eats beans.
Okay. And you know what they say about beans?
No. What do they say?
They're the magical fruit. And the more you eat, Sean,
the more you toot.
That's right.
Which makes you faster.
That's what I was going for.
He doesn't need it. He's fast. He goes to Boston. He puts up a .322 batting average with an .857 OPS in August and September that year. He's got 15 extra base hits, including 7 triples in just 171 at bats. So not quite as good, but still good.
Yeah, still very commendable.
But they don't want him because his glove cost him. He makes 21 errors in just 43 games.
Ooh, okay. Yeah.
And they walk away from him at the end of the year.
And no DH at this time.
No DH. Remember, I gave you a hint earlier about first base. So he finds an opportunity in the Eastern League playing under manager Arthur Irwin for the Toronto Canucks. Yeah. And they're an affiliate of the Senators, the Washington Senators at the time. Dan the Man continues to mash the baseball for them and fly around the bases up in Canada. He hits 354 and slugged 514, leading the league with 20 triples. He was first on the team in pretty much every offensive category, leading the team in at-bats, hits, runs, doubles, and, of course, triples. He collected 5 home runs and 32 stolen bases as well. And Toronto seemed to figure out his defensive issue by just putting him at first base.
All right.
And he's tall. I should mention. He's like 6'1", 6'2", like 190 pounds. Like, he's a big guy for the 1890s. You know, they talk about him being like taller than the average player and stuff when you read about him. So he's like a big boy.
So he can make a big stretch.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. But once again, like, you don't think about speed when you think of a first baseman. And McGann, he would once again be back in the majors because the Baltimore Orioles had an issue with their first baseman, Jack Doyle, who we will absolutely be making an episode on based on what I read about him. Doyle was a disruptive force on and off the field. Despite great numbers at the dish, Doyle had disdain for the O's, as he did not appreciate being traded there by the Giants. In August 1897, Doyle fought umpire Thomas Lynch after an on-field dispute got too heated, to finalize wearing out his welcome in Boston. He traded fisticuffs with the team leader and star third baseman John McGraw, with McGraw saying that on one such occasion he grabbed a bat and would have broken Doyle's jaw if manager Ned Hanlon had not stopped him.
All right. Sounds like quite the altercation.
Oh, buddy. John McGraw is going to be a big part of this story, and it's all about altercations. Okay. So Doyle's out, and they pick up McGann. So Hanlon trying to avoid his star player beating their first baseman to death with a bat, traded Doyle to the Washington Senators for second baseman Gene DeMontreville and, of course, our boy Dan McGann.
Dennis.
So, end of the 1897 season, and Orioles star John McGraw was skeptical of his new first baseman. And I quote, "Dan may be all right, and again, he may not. In the minor leagues, there are a few who can hit the ball harder and oftener than George Carey. But in a club like ours, he was nervous. Every time he went to bat, his hands shook from nervousness. McGann may not be that way at all. I do not mean to say he would be, but he might."
Okay. So he hasn't really made a decision.
Yeah, he's like, maybe this guy's too nervous to play in the majors. Maybe not. I don't know. We'll see. It was the former, because McGann absolutely mashed in Baltimore that year. He has a career year at age 26. He puts up a career high, I believe, 5.2 baseball reference WAR. He bats .301 in 145 games, along with an on-base percentage of .400. Well, he plays decent first base. He was a regular first baseman, and he also stole 33 bases that year. So,
no nerves.
No nerves, Johnny boy. Dan's here, and Baltimore seemed to. Oh yeah, in Baltimore he seemed to crowd the plate, and in fact everybody seemed to crowd the plate because they had 3 players in the top 5 of hit by pitches. With McGann finishing second to teammate Huey Jennings and, of course, John McGraw in 5th place. But the O's won 96 games and still finished 6 games back of Boston, though, for the NL pennant.
All right. That's too bad.
Yeah. So despite winning, despite the winning team, Baltimore is bleeding money, and attendance was falling. And owner Harry Vonderhorst came up with a plan. He met with Brooklyn owners Charles Ebbett and Frederick Abel, and they combined ownerships of these teams with like a 50-50 split. So they're like, we'll just own both teams and make one team better.
Okay. You'd never see that today.
No. No. I think we might have even mentioned this before in like previous podcasts because that breaks up this team, and so a number of players are sent to Brooklyn, including Dan McGann. This did not go as planned in Brooklyn, as McGann hit just 243 in 63 games before being shipped to the terrible Washington Senators halfway through the season, so shortstop Huey Jennings could play first after he injured his throwing arm. So he's out once again.
Okay, so he was nervous in Brooklyn.
Well, I guess Baltimore is still minor league city. So he's reunited with Arthur Irwin in Washington, and he has a ridiculous second half. Like maybe they just needed to wait for him, but his second half in 77 games. Remember, he hits 243 in 63 games. His last 77 games, he hits 338 with an OPS plus of 143. So he just rips it down in Washington. But he also continued to get on base like crazy because he led the league with 37 hit by pitches.
All right. He is crowding the plate.
Yeah. So he would lead that league in that stat. Remember, he came in second the year before. He leads the league in that stat 6 times in his career. As mentioned, the Senators were really bad, so bad that they didn't exist after the 1889 season, and the Nationals sold him and podcast alum pitcher Gus Weiing to the St. Louis Cardinals.
Okay. It's a good thing they were on the same team.
Yeah, that's right. He led the league being hit by pitches. Gus Weiing
exactly
still has the record of hit by pitches by a pitcher. He puts up 2 solid seasons in St. Louis. He leads the league once again with Gus Weiing on his team in hit by pitches. And he also collects 18 triples and 43 stolen bases in a combined 224 games for the Cardinals. So he's good, and he's fast, and he gets on base because he can walk and he can get hit in the shoulder by a fastball. So his power is not the same as it once was when like the minor league power doesn't show up in the majors, but he's still fast and he still gets on base.
Well,
he's like James Loney.
He keeps getting hit by pitches, so that maybe has something to do with it. I don't know. I'm not a doctor.
Well, you're not a doctor. Now, he is having a fairly successful career at this point, but he can't escape family tragedy. There's different timing on this one. Some say it was a little bit later, but one thing I found is on New Year's Eve, 1901, one of McGann's brothers accidentally shoots himself, and he doesn't die from the wound, he doesn't die from the initial trauma, but the wound gets infected, and he dies somewhere around there. So unfortunately, McGann loses another brother, and as we heard at the beginning, he's going to lose another one too.
Oh man.
Yeah. So back to baseball. He jumps leagues. He rejoined his pal John McGraw, now with the Orioles of the American League, and that move would not last. He played well for the last place O's, hitting .316 with 17 stolen bases in 68 games. But then he jumped ship with his buddy McGraw once again. And they, I don't know if I need to say this, but he is drinking. He is drinking a lot. And
I assumed so. It's the 1890s, and 2, I can say this because I am also of Irish descent, but he is Irish.
He is, and so is McGraw, and they are buddies, and they reunite, right? And the Orioles, basically. The Orioles are a wild bunch, right? They're arguing and fighting with umpires, and it leads to things coming to head because on June 28th things boiled over and led McGraw and McGann to jump leagues halfway through the year. In a close game in the 8th inning against Chick Stahl and Boston, McGann got into a rundown between third and home. Dan used his speed to retreat safely to third base with his teammate Cy Seymour retreating safely to second. Boston shortstop Freddie Parent called for the ball and tagged Seymour on second base, arguing to Connolly, the umpire, that Seymour had run past third and failed to retouch it as he ran back to second. Connolly agreed and called Seymour out. And then McGraw loses his mind because he's the player manager and whatever. He just comes out and he's freaking out. What followed next is a debate. The Baltimore Sun said, and I quote, "McGraw did not talk roughly to the umpire, nor was he as strenuous as he had been on numerous occasions this year when he was not penalized." So the local paper's hey, he didn't really even yell at him or say anything mean. And the Boston Globe says McGraw threatened to hang Connolly.
Okay, so there's a bit of a he said, she said situation going on there between the newspapers. We got a Homer paper and an out-of-towner.
And the home paper's he's been way worse in the past. And the out-of-town paper, the away team paper is he threatened to kill him.
Yeah, okay.
So Connolly, he ejects McGraw. And when the Baltimore manager refused to go, the umpire declared the game a forfeit for Boston.
All right.
Not something you see.
A forfeit for Baltimore that Boston wins.
Yes, yeah. Boston wins. The game is over because the umpire refuses to leave and stop arguing. So Ban Johnson suspends McGraw 2 days later. And McGraw said during the suspension, and I quote, "I am sick and tired of the whole business, and I don't care if I ever play in the American League again." So,
okay,
not an empty threat. McGraw left Baltimore for the Giants mid-season and took his first baseman and drinking buddy Dan McGann with him. The Giants
this pair, this tandem is giving me. Billy Martin and Mickey Mantle vibes.
Oh, buddy, 100%. That's a good comparison. That's not too bad. I think McGann's Billy Martin,
no,
I don't know.
No, McGann is Mantle and McGraw is Billy Martin.
I guess. I don't know. I've read a lot about. Anyways, we can figure this out. I understand the manager player. Anyways, the Giants suck. The Giants also suck. They leave a pretty good team for a pretty crappy team. But as we know, this is 1903, I believe. Things begin to turn around. One of the newspapers claimed, and I quote, "McGann helped McGraw bring to the Giants the rowdy brand of play for which the old Orioles had been famous." So they're it's like Mighty Ducks, where the two guys come on the ice and all of a sudden the music starts playing and they start beating the shit out of people.
Right.
It is absolutely they're a terrible team, but these two guys show up and they're let's fucking do this. So it was 1902 and they finished 53 and a half games back, but in 03, they finished in second. So in 129 games, McGann collects 130 hits. This is 1903, and 36 stolen bases. He didn't hit for power at all anymore, but he walks more than he strikes out. He's just good, and he steals a ton of bases. In 1904, the Giants made the full transition in just 2 seasons from worst to first. So McGann has a monster season, offensively doing what he did best. He once again leads the league, getting plunked. And on May 24th, 1904, McGann made history. He became the first player to steal 5 bases in a single game during a 3-1 win over the Brooklyn's Superbas at the Polo Grounds in NYC. You want to guess who broke his record? I'll give you.
I feel like I should know this, but what were you going to say?
It took a long time. He steals 5 bases in a game. It takes until the 90s to do it. Think of a speedster in the 90s.
Well, I mean, my natural inclination is to go Ricky Henderson, but
That's what I had at the end of this. Is like, well, how wasn't this Ricky Henderson?
but
But it's not.
it's not obviously, and thusly I don't know.
In 1991, Otis Nixon finally breaks the record.
Okay, that makes sense.
See, Otis Nixon breaks it with 5. It took until
The oldest looking young man to ever exist.
ever. He looked like my grandma before my grandma was like my grandma. He's just, anyways.
Sorry, Otis.
Sorry, Otis. We love you. You were a J for a moment, and you bunted out the last out of the World Series. That'll never happen again. Dave. So this is as in 1904. Davy Lopez would tie it 70 years later, but even still, that's a pretty sick record to hold for 70 years until somebody even ties it, and then another 17 years till somebody breaks it after that. So yeah, that's the fun part. He can fly and he can drink and he can definitely. God, we'll get there. So the Giants are a cantankerous bunch with many fans and rival city papers complaining that the team was too rough and always arguing with the umpires. In August that year, McGann was ejected for profoundly voicing his displeasure with a call umpire Charles Zimmer made. National League President Harry Pullman suspended McGann indefinitely after that, and then was like, maybe 3 games.
I've had a change of heart.
You're like, you're done. You're never playing in this league again until Thursday. So, fun fact later in that game, nothing to do with the story, Giants backup catcher Frank Bowerman would climb into the stands and punch a spectator who was heckling the Giants. The ump did nothing, and the mayor of Cincinnati, who was at the game, ordered police to arrest the man, or to arrest the backup catcher, and they arrest him, like go into the dug. Anyways, they arrest the Giants. This is what the press was talking about, them being a rowdy bunch. But Frank Bowerman gets arrested by the mayor of Cincinnati. But the guy's like, nah, I'm not pressing charges. Like, I kind of deserve that.
Okay, so he's like a early 20th century baseball Ron Artest.
Yeah, it was exactly. This is just kind of show who the Giants were as a team. And they were very good. They won 106 games, and they finished a cool 13 games ahead of the second place Cubs to secure the NL pennant. As we have covered way back, McGraw's rivalry with Van Johnson in the American League would lead to no World Series in 1904.
Uh-huh.
In 1905, McGann's 33, and he has his best season in years. He starts it off by being a hero, as well as some fisticuffs. February 25th, this is not the fisticuffs, in Hot Springs, Arkansas, McGann and teammate Mike Donlin were the heroes. The two were credited with climbing up to the second floor of the Hotel Moody to rescue an old woman from a fire, with McGann sustaining mild burns on his face and hands.
All right. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, they're like, so, they're rough on the field. Mike Donlin, another guy that we might do an episode on in the future, but they rescue an old lady from a fire down in Arkansas.
That's nice.
Yeah. And then they hit the field and they beat the shit out of people. We're getting to one of the best stories I've ever read in baseball history here. So April 22nd, 1905, McGann tried scoring from second on a single, but he's cut down at the dish. Right? So it seems like a clean play. Nobody really thinks much of it. But McGann responds to the tag by punching catcher Fred Abbott in the face. So
all right. That escalated quickly.
But I guess McGann turns his back because Abbott hurls the ball into his back or into his butt at like super close range, fully pitches it as hard as he can, throws him, and that causes a ruckus, if you will. So I don't know exactly if the bench is totally cleared, But somehow, and you'll never hear this story on Ken Burns Baseball, Christy Matheson apparently punched a boy selling lemonade.
Oh my God, why?
Like a 12-year-old.
Why?
Because the boy apparently like wandered in front of the Giants dugout while it was clearing for this fight, and the boy proclaimed that McGann was a rowdy.
All right.
So the gentleman pitcher, Christy Matheson, just punches a 12-year-old in the face carrying lemonade.
that is extreme.
Yeah. So as you can guess by a child getting punched in the face, the ensuing melee was generally agreed to be the biggest bench clearing brawl of that season. Both players were ejected with umpire George Boswine by umpire George Boswine, but there were no formal punishments issued. But Philadelphia fans, clearly upholding Philadelphia's tradition that stands to this day, threw objects at McGann from their seats and caused several Giants players to threaten to go up into the stands and beat the shit out of spectators. But of course, it's Philly, so things don't end. The fans wait outside of the stadium.
Okay, what pandemonium.
I remember this in 1905, so there is literal horse-drawn carriages waiting for the players outside.
Uh-huh.
And they're just getting pelted by the crowd. Like, people are just throwing shit as they're climbing, trying to get in the carriages to leave and go back to their hotel. The Philadelphia Inquirer said, and I quote, "Finally, half a brick was thrown into one of the carriages, hitting a player. The players tried to pull down the hoods of the carriages to save themselves from the fusillade of missiles being hurled at them, but the angry crowd prevented them. One of the mob was hit over the head with a bat in the hands of one of the players. Another was locked up for the charge of rioting." So,
Jesus Christ.
So the players are trying to get away. They're one player at least is hitting people with a bat from the carriage to get them to like clear and stop throwing bricks at people. And I love that like one person's arrested. Like
that'll show everyone. Like,
Lenny did it.
Yeah.
So even in that, it's like funny because the carriages get away, but then like another mob of people find them and like stop them and throw more stuff. But in that one, I guess nobody gets hurt. So remember, all of this happened because McGann punched the catcher for no reason whatsoever. So you get so much damage being done here by one decision, including a boy being punched by Christy Matheson.
Well, that kid did go shooting his mouth off, so.
Oh man! So in 136 games in that year, McGann collects 14 triples, 22 stolen bases, and the Giants win the pennant for a second year in a row. And this time they do go to the World Series, and they absolutely handle the Philadelphia Athletics in that series 4-1. In the series, McGann went 4 for 17 at the plate, but he was the star of Game 3 as he drove in 4 runs on 3 hits. So that's his we've reached peak. We've reached peak.
Yeah. Okay.
The Giants are back-to-back pennant champions. Now they're World Series champions, and let's just say things are going to go downhill from here. In comparison, 1906 season was quite tame for the Giants, who finished in second. No children were punched in the face, probably, but I can confirm that McGann was briefly suspended by NL President Harry Pullman for fighting in May of that year. So he turns 35 in July, and he starts to show his age at the plate. He hit just .235, and his slugging percentage dropped 130 points. And remember, he's not that big of a slugger to begin with here.
Right.
He hits just 14 doubles and 8 triples in 451 at bats. So no home runs, just 14 doubles, 8 triples in almost a full year of playing. He still managed to walk twice as much as he struck out, and he still, at 35, steals 30 bases.
Well, those two stats are still pretty good.
Yeah, but I think it's 1906 and nobody cares if you walk a bunch.
No, no, of course they don't. But by today's standards, that's
By
pretty
today's standards, it's
impressive.
great. And 1907 starts even worse. Well, doesn't it just doesn't go well. He's hit by a pitch in spring training, breaking his wrist, so he is out. And when McGann returns to the Giants midseason, it is apparent that he's a little bit out of shape and overweight, let's just say. So his relationship with his manager and drinking buddy, McGraw, is starting to deteriorate. He puts up decent numbers in 81 games still, like despite maybe being a little bit out of shape. He's bats 298, but the rest of his numbers are really starting to go down. And that winter, McGraw traded him to Boston in a blockbuster 8-player deal that brought first sacker Fred Tenney to New York. When the reporter pointed out that Tenney, like McGann, was 36 years old, McGraw said that Tenney had taken better care of himself.
Okay. So,
which is hilarious because they're like drinking buddies.
Yeah. He's like, I didn't help at all.
But it's also just how competitive McGraw is, right? Like he's willing to trade his friend.
Yeah.
If the guy doesn't live up to his standards on the field. And McGann would take this personally, with the Baltimore Sun reporting McGann, and I quote, has been making threats about what he would do to the New York manager when he came to Boston.
Okay.
This is what we call foreshadowing, Edsy.
Yeah. A literary device.
So after the game, I definitely skipped ahead here. It definitely wasn't an empty threat, although they managed to play some games without incident. But after the game was a different story. I believe after defeating the Giants in Boston, I'm not sure who won. Either way, it doesn't matter. This is in early May 1908. McGraw chirps McGann his deteriorating speed on the base pass. He calls him a damn ice wagon.
Okay. We've heard that insult hurled at some players over the course of doing these episodes.
Yeah, and to be clear, it's after McGann hits into a double play, and so he's getting chirped by his old buddy, and he then makes it so much worse because McGraw goes to reporters post game and claims, and I quote, "That's how the Giants lost a lot of games last year."
Oh man, so he's really throwing salt on the wound. This is quite a fallout.
Yeah. So after the game, McGann heard McGraw's comments, and he goes to the Giants hotel looking for his old friend. McGann is much larger than McGraw, and he finds him in the billiards room and basically straight up attacks him. And he takes him to the ground. They're exchanging blows. Blood is being spilled. Christy Mathewson comes in and is like, "Oh no!" And he
punches a child.
He breaks it up. He intervenes. He pulls McGann off of his manager, or his former manager, and a bloodied McGraw retreats to his room with McGann in full pursuit. But luckily, McGraw is like slams the door, locks it before McGann could catch him. Right? Like maybe your foot speed's going down there, McGann. Couldn't catch him, eh? Anyways, the hotel's porters physically removed McGann from the premises. So that was them. I don't think they talked much after that, but there was a rumor that at the end of his career, McGraw might sign him when McGraw went out to California, but who knows? But he doesn't have a good year in Boston, and it's his last in the majors. He hit .240 with only 9 stolen bases. His power was gone. His eye wasn't as good, and he was slowing down. But you're damn right, he led the league for a 6th and final time in hit by pitch.
All right, well, he hasn't lost that skill.
It's amazing he only got hurt for like one half season, the amount of balls he got hit with. he continues his career for the next 2 seasons playing for the Milwaukee Brewers of the American Association, and you'd think that would go better. It doesn't. He has 1,079 at-bats for the Brew Crew. He collects just 49 extra base hits with a batting average of .235.
Okay, so he's really declining then.
And once again, back to his family. At the beginning of his second year in Milwaukee, as I mentioned off the top, his brother, Dan, kills himself. So that is not good. He's now lost a mother and 3 siblings. When did his dad die? I have it here. His dad's dead at this point too. Just he is one by one losing family, and he's only 39 years old. His career looked to be over. It was rumored that McGann was expected to continue playing in the Pacific Coast League, as I mentioned, or on a team closer to Kentucky, go back home for the 1911 season.
Mm-hmm.
But Dan McGann would not make it to 1911. And I'll just read once again from Don Jensen's Sabre bio on him. And I quote, "On the night of December 13th, 1910, McGann was found dead in his room in the Bessler's Hotel in Louisville with a bullet in his chest and a revolver in his hand. The coroner ruled his death a suicide. Indeed, McGann was said to be preoccupied with the tragic deaths of several close family members. In 1909, one of his brothers had taken his own life. The previous New Year's Eve, another brother had died due to an infection resulting from an accidental shooting. McGann's sister committed suicide, as we heard about off the top, following the death of their mother." So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a dark existence that he had to battle through there.
Yeah, and who knows whether it's just grief is so messed up, and there was clearly some hereditary mental health stuff, I think, with this family as well as just tragedy after tragedy. Like, anyways, his 2 remaining sisters were very distraught. Obviously, they've lost so many of their siblings, and they dispute the coroner's rulings at first, and they think that maybe their brother didn't commit suicide, but maybe he was murdered.
Okay.
So the only evidence they have for this is that he had been in his best health and humor when last seen, and also wearing a diamond ring worth about $25,000 US at the time, which witnesses had noticed on him, but was now missing.
Oh, okay. That's an interesting twist.
So we'll never know, obviously, but there is probably he most likely killed himself, unfortunately. The rest of the crime scene didn't line up with his sister's supposed narrative, as he had a diamond pin, $37 in cash, and like $1,000 in a promissory note were still on his body. So if somebody robbed him of the ring and shot him and made it look like they didn't take his wallet or this diamond pin or anything else. Right. And no matter what,
and it sounds like there was no sign of struggle or anything.
No, but there's also no note or anything, I believe. So who knows? No matter what happened, Dan McGann died at 39 years old, which was way too young. His baseball career had been solid, but not spectacular. He puts up a 34 baseball WAR over 12 major league seasons and 1,437 games. He's not your prototypical first baseman, as he had more speed than he did power. Something we'll probably never see again in modern baseball. And to put this in perspective, Eds, I tried to pull a few guys from the last few generations here. Dan McGann had more stolen bases than Lloyd Mosby.
Wow.
Dan McGann had more stolen bases than Ray Durham.
Okay, I'm less familiar with that name, but... Anyway.
Okay, 90s. Come on, White Sox. He also has more stolen bases than Brett Gardner.
Wow.
So those three guys I chose because when I think of those three guys, I don't think of like Ricky Henderson, but I think of like speedsters.
Yeah.
There's also there's only three active players that have more stolen bases than him, and that would be Altuve, Sterling Marte, and Trey Turner. But yeah, Dan McGann was a speedy first baseman that fought a lot of people, and tragically,
fought a lot of demons by the sounds of things too.
Yeah, and that's the story of Dan McGann. Old John McGraw's drinking buddy.
Dennis.
Sorry,
yeah.
Dennis
McGann. Well, that's you said it would be a classic 1890s, early 1900s tragic story, and that certainly fit the bill. That's, as I said, it's a tragedy to lose somebody so young, and he certainly had an interesting life and career in his less than 40 years, though.
Oh my God, yeah. No, and one of those where you're like, I don't know if this guy's that interesting. If you just setting the record for most stolen bases in a game and killing yourself isn't exactly, what we look for. But it's a good start. That's probably why I had him on it. And then I was like, all of the other crazy stuff was just like, oh my God. Like, I couldn't believe like we've covered McGraw here a little bit, and he's just such a wild character. So for this guy to be like his like almost sidekick, like they followed each other almost all over baseball, and he was an interesting guy. And as I say, I don't think we'll ever see a first baseman steal 30 bases again.
No, I doubt it. But I would argue that those two criteria are almost exactly what we're looking for on this podcast.
Well, I know, but that alone wouldn't have made it.
True.
Wouldn't have made the episode. If he was just a teetotaler that like played on a bunch of crappy teams, like maybe, but no.
But no, he fought everybody and caused Christy Matheson to punch a lemonade selling child. So that's that's enough right there.
That is enough right there. That's the story. Thank you for listening. Edsy, where can people find us on the old internets for more episodes?
People can find us on the old internets or the new internets at Doing Baseball or at Doing.Baseball. Like I said off the top, if you're looking for us and want to have some interaction, give us a story idea or something like that, or even just say hello, you can find us at one of those two handles. And as always, thanks for listening. Wherever you're listening to us, however you're listening to us, give us a rating or review. It really helps us. It helps the algorithm, as I said before, put us in front of more listeners. So if you could do that, it would be greatly appreciated.
All right. Well, that is great. Thank you so much for listening. And until next time, I'm Sean.
And I'm Eds.
And we were doing baseball.
Okay. Bye.